everyone, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit, and welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a bunch of people asked hand history questions, and this one actually came privately via Facebook. And Michel says, "Hey James, I love your videos and I'm really starting to see results in my play because of your suggestions, even though I'm only playing in the micros. Still, I have a question about a hand in which I know I lost a lot of value when I flopped a set of aces." Okay, so this hand was played at 2-0 limit online with a 1 cent ante. There's a min raise from MP, folds to hero who decides to 3-bet with aces. Everything looks okay so far. However, my major gripe is going to be with the size here. So in this situation, MP is a 53-31 over 49 hands, 0% 3-bet, 44% c-bet. So this is someone that we can definitely view as a fishy opponent. It definitely looks a little bit more on the aggro side of the spectrum, being that he has a 31% PFR, and 50 hands is enough to at least get an idea on VPIP and PFR and at least start putting someone in a player type bucket. And as far as fish, I would definitely say fish is fair, probably more on the aggro side of the spectrum. So all that being said, I think we definitely want to go much larger here. Something like at minimum 18 cents and probably going to be somewhere between like 20 and 25 cents most of the time. This is just someone who I view as fishy. I think they're going to call at least a large chunk of the time. They have position and I have no reason to think that this person isn't going to utilize that to their advantage. Couple that with the fact that we do have deeper stacks, and I want to try to make sure that we get as much money in now as possible so that we can start building the pot as quickly as possible. I did a full video on pot geometry that kind of covers this concept and why slightly larger sizes early on can help the final pot size, and if you're interested in that, I would definitely suggest checking it out. But it's a huge element when you're playing against fishy opponents and you have these monster hands. Sometimes the larger preflop size can do a lot of good and a lot of benefit to the hand and the profit as a whole. So in this situation, MP calls, go to the flop, hero flops top set as we knew from the question, and Michel says, on the flop I checked because I didn't think that MP would have the case ace too often and I wouldn't get much value after 3-betting him off of queen X hands or jacks through 8s preflop. After he checked back, I put him on a very mediocre hand like second pair. So shy of the preflop size, this is going to be my next biggest gripe with the hand, because I think that we definitely want to be betting here. Now you mentioned that you thought you may have 3-bet him off of hands like queen X or maybe 8s through jacks preflop, and I'm going to totally disagree with that given the player type that we have, given the fact that he has position on you. I just think that those kind of hands are going to be in there a lot of the time, and because of the player type, I don't think he's going to fold them. Sure, if he has the case ace, he's not going anywhere either, but I think that if he has queen X, that there's a decent chance that he gets sticky for a minimum 2 streets. So my whole goal is just to bet here and hope that he has something he can get sticky with. Now sure, if he has something like total air or maybe even pocket 8s, maybe he just doesn't give us action, and that's fine. But think about it, if we check here, what's the most amount of action we're going to get from that kind of hand anyway? Maybe 1 flop stab and that's it? You know, it's not like we're going to make a ton of value if we check here and he has 8s and something happens, unless you really know that he's going to like bet bomb or something. I just think you make more value by firing yourself than by taking this check. And I think this is something that happens to micro limit players when they flop big hands. Sometimes they panic. They're like, oh man, I have the board totally smashed. I just really can't bet here. But you know how wide people can and will call you in the micros, and especially fishy opponents in the micros. So use that to your advantage and just fire here totally for value. And honestly, I'd probably fire here for like 30 cents. Something nice and large is going to make the final pot size nice and large. And again, I expect someone who's fishy to be very inelastic, meaning they're going to continue with the same hands kind of regardless of the size you use. And when that's the case, bet bigger, especially when you're in the value side of the spectrum yourself. So in this situation, 6 on the turn, and here decides to check again, and I want to talk about this real quick. So Michel says, on the turn, I checked again to induce semi-bluffs or thin value bets out of nearly any 2 Broadway cards, and he bets half pot. I tanked and only flatted to get him to bet again on the river. Now, I get where you're coming from here, but my main issue is you're trying to induce to get semi-bluffs or thin value bets, and my question is, why do we think he wouldn't have just bet those himself on the flop? Right? So I think that if he has a hand that he's going to check with on the flop, that he's most likely going to have things that are like meh pairs or things he's not super amped about, and if he wanted to bluff or stab or do anything thin, he probably would have already done so. So I don't think checking the flop makes much sense. Again, this is the same situation as the flop where I think he's going to continue kind of regardless if he likes his hand even a little bit, and I can't be guaranteed that he's going to bet it. I mean, he did check the flop behind, so I just see all this reason for me to bet myself and no reason to check to him. So again, I think this is another misplay in the hand where we're kind of letting him off the hook. We're letting him kind of check behind here a large chunk of the time. Like, I really wouldn't be shocked if he does. I just kind of see this entire line kind of really leaving a ton of value on the table. Again, starting even from the pre-flop sizing. On the river, it's a king. Here decides to go into his same check mode, faces a bet, this time closer to pot, and here just decides to call. So at this point, Michel says, I was overly worried about him drawing out with Jack 10. I really screwed it, but just called. I know I should have bet or raised at some point for value, but I don't think I should have done it on the flop. So my final question, should I have check raised the turn and bet the river? Should I have check called the turn and check raised the river? Or should I have done something completely different? So as I've kind of said a number of times in this video, this is the kind of situation where I think we should have done something completely different than the line we actually took. I think this should have been a bigger 3-bet preflop, totally for value, also sets up a bigger final pot size. I think the flop should have been bet totally for value. Yes, sure, he's going to fold when he has total error, but I think there's a lot of second best hands he can have, and I think there's a lot of second best hands he will continue with when we bet, and especially for an inelastic person like this, again, I want to see that larger flop bet size, probably for like 30 cents, which was roughly pot. And then once I take that line, I'm usually just going to go bet, bet, bet. And it's going to be big bet on flop, big bet on turn, big bet on river, possibly seeing if I can set up some sort of creative overbet on a turn or river. But even just my traditional line is going to be bet, bet, bet. I just happen to have the absolute nut part of my range here. But against this kind of person, when I have the value part of my range, I'm definitely going to be in a bet, bet, bet mentality 99% of the time. So I don't really like the line we took. I think it was way too passive. I think when we check flop and it goes check, check, check in the turn is criminal. I don't think we can expect it to get bet enough for the time, and I think we're going to leave a lot of value on the table. And because I would have really never played the flop and or the turn that way, I really never see the river like this, so I can't really comment too much on that. But again, the bigger important inflection points are earlier in the hand. In this exact situation, we happen to run into ace-7 and we win, but this is just, again, one of those situations where, yes, he happened to have a huge hand, but even when he just has ace-x, ace-deuce, or ace-jack, I think by taking this line, we leave way too much money on the table against someone who we can get a ton of money against. So Michel, thanks for the great hand, and if you or anyone else has a poker-related hand or question, feel free to leave it on our Google Plus page. Leave a link for that in the description box, and also please make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this type of video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there, and happy grinding.